We're going to talk about conditional statements. Typically, we're going to cover if statement, if else, and if elif, and there could be more combinations of the conditional statement using the if statement. Now, let's first try to understand what these conditional statements are. So, conditional statements actually help in running specific part of a code depending on whether a condition is true or false. It's a decision making statement. So in programming languages, it takes the code into one direction or another. And let's say if we have to talk in very simple terms, if we write an expression like if a greater than b, then a is bigger than b. So this is something like an if condition. The exact syntax in Python is different, but this is how you can understand the if statement in plain English language. Now, the main type of if statements for conditional statements in Python are and the if statement, the if else statements, the if along with the elif statement, and then the nested if statement, which means an if statement within an if statement. And then there could be some combinations of these statements. So let's first try to understand the structure of the if statement. So like we said, it's a decision making statement. It checks whether a statement or a condition is true so that the block of statement can be executed. So basically, and also if the condition is false, then the block code simply comes out of the block. So let's try to understand what it means. So if you write an if statement in Python or any other programming language, as a matter of fact, so you will have some part of a code which is known as the body of the if statement, and something which helps you to uh, evaluate the condition, which is the if statement or the expression would be written above this body. So basically what happens is you check whether a condition is true or false. Like you could say if a is greater than b over here, and if the condition is true, then you run this. If it is false, then you come out of this body of if statement, and then next statement in the code will be executed, right? So in Python you will write it something like this. So you'd say, like in this case, I'm saying num is equal to 100. If num is less than 200, then print num is less than 200. So if in this case, since 100 is less than 200, it will print this statement. But if this would have been, let's say, 1000, then this would not hold true. So the program will come out of this if body. This is the if body. There's only one statement in this if block. So it will come after, the code will come out of this if this num was not less than 200. So let's try to further understand this with the Python code. So here is the Python code. I'm saying x is 10 and y is 20. And then in this case, I'm saying if x is greater than y, then do this, else do this. So this is the way you write the if statement. Now I can just write the if statement like this. So what will happen in this case? Uh, x is 10 and y is 20. So this statement, if x is greater than y, is not true, right? Because 10 is not greater than 20. So this program will come to the next line, which is the sixth line number or whatever is after this, right? Because my if block is only this much. Right? Do note that how we write the if statement. You first write the if statement, then the condition, and then the colons, right? So what happens is if you write the statement like this, and if you put a colon here and you put enter, you see these indents come in, right? So this indent is basically this signifies the if block, right? So basically, if you had to write something more after this, let's say you want to write something more in this if command, then you can put an enter sign, and again this indent would be there, right? So as long as you want to keep on writing inside this if block, you keep on pressing enter and the indent would be there. And the moment you want to come out of this, you just use the backspace and you remove the indent, right? So this is the simplest if statement, and it will say if x is greater than y, so this is false, it will not print this x. However, if we say if x is less than y, then obviously 10 is less than 20 and this statement would be executed. So if I run this line of code, so it prints 10 here, which means since this condition was true, so it ran this code. But if I reverse it like this, sorry, like this, and now if I try to run this code till here, so what will happen is it does nothing because it has come out of the block. As a matter of fact, just to make it a little interesting, if I say print and we are out of if block rather, so which means if this line is executed, we are out of the if block. Now if I run this code, so we see what is the output. So when getting the output, we are out of if block, which means we did not enter this if block because the condition was not true. So I hope that explains the if statement. Now let's get back to the next statement, which is the if else statement. Now in if else statement, we have unlike if statement wherein only once the expression is true, then only the if block is executed, we have the if and the else block in the if else statement. So if the condition is true, the if part, the block just after the if part is executed, and if it is false, then the block after the else block is executed. So you can think of the if else statement as two blocks. One is the block just after the if statement and the other one is just after the else statement, right? So in either case, true or false, the if or the else block will be executed, right? And this is how it is logically written. So if this is the expression, you'll say if, let's say again same example, if a is less than b, if the condition is true, then the body of if is executed. If the condition is false, then the body of else is executed, and after that the next line of the code is executed. For example, if the code is grades is equal to 70, and if grades is greater than 70, then you say print graduated, else you say print failed, right? So this is the if block and this is the else block. Let's try to understand it with the help of the code. So in this case, if I say if x is greater than y, then print x. So we're trying to print the bigger number, and otherwise we'll say else print y. So which means whichever is the bigger number will be printed in this case. If we try to run this code, so what will happen is x is 10, y is 20. So if x is greater than y, so is 10 greater than 20, the condition is false. So this part of the code is not executed. It goes to the else statement because it goes here if it is false. As a matter of fact, we can just highlight this. Runs if condition is true, and the other one runs if condition is false, right? So so in this case, if since 10 is let's try to understand this again. So in this case, if I say if x is greater than y, so which means 10 is greater than 20, this condition is false. So obviously this line will execute it, the else block will be executed, and y would be printed, right? And if I either change this condition, or let me just change this condition only, and in this case, now if I see x is less than y, which means 10 is less than 20, so the condition is true. So the if block is executed and x is printed. So let's try to run this first. So if I run this, so I get 10 because this block is if block is executed, and if I reverse the condition, then you will see then y value will be printed because you see this 20 because the condition is false and this block is executed. So this is the if and else block. In this case, in either ways, if the condition is true, the if block is executed, and if the condition is false, the else block is executed. Then there is nested if. When we want to check for another condition after a condition is already checked, we use a nested if. And we can also have a construct like if else if elif sorry if elif else, and then we construct another if elif else construct inside it. So a lot of combinations are possible. So just a simple example, we can say if condition 1, then execute this when condition 1 is true, and again within this if statement there's another if condition 2, execute when condition is true, and uh, if block is ending here, so and the second if block is ending here, right? So let's take a practical example over here, or before this example, let's try to understand the construct. So first we'll put first if condition. If it is true, right, so if it is true, then we run this body of if, and if it is false, so another if is within the false. So if the condition is true, do this. If it is false, do another check, and this check will again have true and false depending on our condition, how it's set, and then this comes out here, and the next statement after this if is executed. So this is how a nested if looks logically. And to take an example, if I say a value is 13, and I'm checking if I is equal to 13, this is an equivalence symbol. So if I is 13, so I write my first if condition, if statement, and then if it is false, then I'll say check another condition if I is less than 15, and then do something within this if nested if block, and then you can come out of the if. So this second one will be executed if the above statement is true, right? And otherwise you can bring in more conditions, like maybe put another condition here, and you can nest your if condition. Say I introduce now another variable z, and I say it's 30. If x is greater than y, then I want to check if x is greater than z, right? So if this condition is true, then this condition is also checked, and if this is also true, then I'll say print x is let's just keep it really simple. I mean, I know we can do a lot of other things in here, but I'm just checking if x is greatest or not, right? So if x is greater than y, then I'm saying I'm checking another condition. So this will be executed only if it is true, and if it is not true, then I'll say else. I'll just print x is not biggest. So I'm not checking the biggest number, I'm just checking whether x is biggest or not, just to keep this code simple, because otherwise we'll have to write the code in a different way to find the biggest number. So this code is not for finding the biggest number. So in this case, this code will first check if x is greater than y. So in this case, 10 is greater than 20, so this will not be executed, so it will print x is not biggest. But if I make it 100, let's say, then it'll say if x is greater than y, so 100 is obviously greater than 20, so which means this if block will be executed, and since x is also greater than 30, so it will print x is biggest. So let's try to run this code first. So I get x is biggest, and if I make x as 10 and try to run this code again, so I get x is not biggest. So this is a very simple example of nested if. We can also use if and ELIF and maybe more if and else combinations here. Just to give few more examples, there is something else known as the pass statement. So if we want not to do anything on specific case, let's say if x is less than y, then we don't want to do anything, and if it is otherwise, I want to print let's say do something, right? Just like that. Okay, so in this case, x is 10 and y is 20, obviously. So if I run this, so x is 10, x 10 is less than 20, so it will pass, right? So it will pass, so nothing happens, you see. But if I say x is greater than y, so in this case 10 10 is not greater than 20, so it will go to the else. So it will not pass this time, and it will just print do something, right? So basically pass is just to skip, just like that, right? In some cases you might find it handy. Okay, then you can also use if statement, which is actually one of the biggest use cases of if statement. So maybe you have a list, for example, and then you want to check if a specific name. So I'm finding a name, Amit, if it exists in the list. So I loop through this list using the loop statement, and then I can check this condition, right? So if the name is there, then it will print. So these kind of if statements can also be run. We will discuss these more once we have covered loops in detail. And finally, there's a shorthand of if and if else statement. So shorthand is basically you have a very single line of code. For example, if I say if a greater than b, then just print. So I just write it in a single line, right? Also, I can write a code like this. So if a is 2, I'm saying a is 2 and b is 330, and I'm saying print a if a greater than b, else print b. So this is in a single line. So basically, whatever I'm writing first is executed if true, and what is coming after else is executed if it's false, right? So these are the shorthand codes, right? And then you can also use a combination of and or if you want to use two conditions, like if a is greater than b and c greater than a. If both condition is true, then do this. Else if a greater than b, or, so which means if either of the condition is true or false, right? So these are some of the ways. Let's just do one last thing. So let's try to write this again, the single what do you say, a shorthand if statement to close this session. So I'm saying previously we said in this case if x is greater than y, so instead of writing it like this, what will do is I'll say print x. So I'm saying if x greater than y, so if the condition is true, then print this, else print y. So basically what happens here is, just check the syntax. Sorry, print, this bracket has to come here. Yeah. So so what I'm doing here is if I run this, we don't need this z here. So if I run this code, let's first run this and I'll try to explain it again. So 20 is what I get. So basically I check this condition if x is greater than y, so is 10 greater than 20, so it's false, so that's why it's printing this one. And if I reverse the condition, if x is less than y, so in this case 10 is, this condition is true, this time print x will execute, which is 10 should be printed out. So I get 10. So these are some of the combination of if statement, and there are a lot of other variations as well, but I think if you understand these topics, this will be good enough to get you going in understanding the conditional statements in Python, specifically the if else and if ELIF statement along with the nested statements. There is another conditional statement which we will discuss in next videos. Thank you. I hope you like the video. If you liked it, then you please like, comment or subscribe to our videos.